Hello everyone, welcome back. It's been a long time. Today we are going to be doing chemistry paper 2 multiple choice. We are going to be doing the October-November 2021 series. This is the version 2.2 version. And let's get this on. So experiment 1, an experiment is set up as shown. Okay, so we see a cotton wool soaked in ammonia, and then we see a cotton wool soaked in hydrochloric acid. After several minutes, a white ring of ammonium chloride appears as shown. If you see this question, it's likely going to be about diffusion. So which statement explains the observation after several minutes? Okay, and it is indeed about diffusion. So for diffusion, ammonia gas, remember ammonia is the formula NH3, and hydrochloric is the formula HCl. So now you have to find the MR, the molar mass of each. So nitrogen is 14, hydrogen is 1 times 3, so this is 17 grams per mole for ammonia, and hydrochloric acid is 36.5 grams per mole. How did I get this? Well, hydrogen is 1, chlorine is 35.5. If you add them together, you get the molar mass of hydrochloric acid, which is 36.5. Now you can see the more heavier the MR, the more MR it has, the slower the rate of diffusion. It is basically more heavier. So then ammonium is going to diffuse faster because of its less molar mass. So it will diffuse faster than hydrogen chloride gas because its molecule has a lower molecular mass. So number 1 is A. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Question number 2. A student put exactly 25.00 centimeter cube of hydrochloric acid into the conical flask. The student then added 2.5 grams of solid sodium carbonate and measured the change in temperature of the mixture. What apparatus does the student need to use? So this is the apparatus. We have to know basically what apparatus the student needs to use. Well, we are given a clue here with the 25.00 centimeter cube of hydrochloric acid. Now this 25.00, notice that they has a 2 decimal place at the end. So this means that exactly 25.00. Now this means the student has to use a pipette or pipette, however you want to call it, because a pipette can put the exact measurement. So pipettes, they come in 25 cm cube, 50 cm cube, 10 cm cube sizes, and that's something that you just have to remember. So pipette, we know pipette is definitely one of the apparatus. Now we know that there's a conical flask already, and then the student added 2.5 grams. Now this is showing mass, and how do you measure a mass? Then you use a balance, of course. So you use a balance, so balance, pipette, and it says later on the student measures the change in temperature. So how do you measure temperature? Of course you have to use the thermometer. So you have to choose the option that has all of these 3 options, which is C. Question number 3. A student separates sugar from pieces of broken glass. Okay, by dissolving the sugar in water and filtering off the broken glass. What is the filtrate? Now this is asking if you do understand what is filtrate, what is residue, what is solution, and vice versa. Okay, so the sugar is going to dissolve in this water. So this sugar is the filtrate, right? And then which is going to get filtered out of the broken glass. The broken glass, remember, is chunks or solids, big chunks of solids, so they will get left in the conical flask. Now this is what we call the residue, and therefore the broken glass is not the filtrate, but the filtrate is actually the salt, the sugar solution. Therefore D is the correct answer. Moving on, question number 4. How many protons, neutrons, and electrons are there in one atom of isotope Al2713? Now you have to know the isotopic, the way they generally write the structure. When you look at your periodic table, they will not show you in this form, in this isotopic form. So you will have to know. So let's put element X as a general form. Let's put A as the atomic number. This is the atomic number, is basically the proton number. And then Z as the mass number or the nucleon number. Now what is the nucleon number? It is basically the atoms that are inside the nucleus, which is proton and neutrons. So we have to find the aluminum. Okay, so so another trick that you can use here is the fact that you just have to find the smaller number first. The smaller number is 13. So this 13 is definitely the proton number, because the mass number always has to be bigger than the proton number. So it is definitely going to be either A or B. Now we have to find the electrons. It says one atom. If it's one atom, the electron has to be a neutral, which means the proton and electron has to be equal. So if there are 13 protons, there are also 13 electrons to balance out the positive charge. Now finally, we are left with neutrons. What neutron, remember, is basically proton plus neutron is the mass number. So this 27, if we minus the proton number, we will get the remaining neutron number, which is 14. Therefore, B is the correct answer. Question number 5, which description of brass is correct? Now remember, brass is made out of 70% copper, 30% zinc. Now, because these two are metals, it is a mixture of two different metals, and therefore it is an alloy. And that is the definition of alloy, a mixture of metals. You have to learn that by heart. Question number 6, some properties of diamond are shown. It is very hard. Okay, this is true. Every atoms form 4 bonds. Okay, it does not conduct electricity. Yes, it does not conduct electricity. And diamonds also have 4 bonds. Which properties are shown by silicon 4 oxide? Well, remember, the structure of silicon and diamond are very similar because they both have the tetrahedral structure. So like they have this like tetrahedral structure. Okay, my drawing sucks. But essentially they both has the same physical structure, and they both form 4 bonds, which is and silicon 5 oxide does not conduct electricity. Okay, so remember, forming 4 bonds, diamond is purely made out of carbon. It is an allotrope of carbon, basically another version of carbon. However, silicon 4 oxide is an ionic compound because it's made out of silicon and oxide. So it does not form 4 bonds. So 6 is going to be C because it is very hard and it does not conduct electricity. So 1 and 3 are correct. Question number 7, which statement describes the attractive forces between molecules? Remember, between molecules, the attractive forces between molecules are called the intermolecular forces. Molecular forces. And intermolecular forces is basically the attraction between molecules. So for example, if I say a chlorine, right, we write chlorine as CO2. This is this structural display formula. So this molecule of chlorine is going to attract with another molecule of chlorine. Now this attraction is very weak. We call this the intermolecular force. So they are weak forces which is formed, okay, which is formed between covalently bonded molecules. This is correct because only covalently bonded molecules can have this intermolecular force, and therefore C is the correct answer. Question number 8. Which substance is described as a macromolecule? Macro meaning big, so we have to find a very big or giant molecule. Remember, ammonia is a very small molecule. It is only made out of NH3 It's only made of 1 nitrogen, 3 hydrogen, so it's a very small structure. Graphite is actually a very big macromolecule, so it is B. Iron is just an atom, so it's not a macromolecule. Sodium chloride is not a macromolecule. Instead, it is a giant ionic lattice. This is a giant ionic lattice structure, or lattice, whatever you want to call it. It is giant, yes, but it is not a molecule because it is an ion. It forms ionic bonds between the sodium plus ion and the chloride minus ion. Okay, question number 9. The equation for the reaction with sodium with water is shown. What is the excess volume of hydrogen gas measured at room temperature when it is produced when 18.4 grams of sodium reacts with excess water? Okay, so for this question, we have to find the volume of hydrogen gas, which is measured at room temperature. So they give us the mass of sodium. The mass of sodium is given with the excess water. Okay. And okay, so we have to find the volume of hydrogen gas. Well, this is a calculation question. So remember, mole is equal to mass over mR. Since the water is in excess, we have to take the sodium as the limiting reactant, because excess water, but the sodium is only not 18.4 grams, which is not in excess. So we have to take the sodium, we have to compare the sodium, we have to write a mole ratio with sodium and the hydrogen, because we want to find the hydrogen gas being produced. So from the equation, we can see that there's 2 sodium makes one hydrogen gas molecule. So now we have to find the mole of sodium. To find the mole of sodium, remember mole is equal to mass over mR. We know the mass of sodium is 18.4. It is being divided by the mR of sodium, which is I believe it's 23. If you divide it, you will get the answer. So 18.4 divided by 23. So we get 0.8. Now 0.8 is to something. So basically, we just have to halve the 0.8 by 2 again, so that we will get the moles of hydrogen, which is 0.4. Now we get the moles of hydrogen, which is 0.4. So 0.4, remember, we have to multiply it with. Okay, so we only know the volume. So let's look at the volume equation. So basically, the volume is equal to the mole times the molar volume. So 0.4 times the molar volume, which is always constant, it is 24 dm cubed. And therefore, you are going to get 9.6 dm cubed as your answer. So this is how you get the volume. So A is the correct answer. Okay, moving on to question number 10. Iron can be electroplated with zinc to make it resistant to corrosion. Which rule about electroplating iron with zinc is correct? Okay, this is an electrolysis question. So we want to electroplate the iron with zinc. Okay, so zinc has to be the outer electron. Zinc has to lose the electron. So this zinc has to lose the electron, which means it's going to form Zn2 plus 2 electron. This is an oxidation reduction, and remember, oxidation reaction, and this oxidation only takes place at the anode. Remember, an ox and cat red. So the zinc has to be on the anode, so it's either C or D. While the iron has to be at the cathode, because the cathode is going to gain the electrons lost by the zinc. And so the electrolyte has to be a salt of zinc nitrate. and therefore D is the correct answer. Question number 11. Chlorine reacts with ethane to produce chloroethane and hydrogen chloride. The reaction is exothermic. Okay, the bond energies are shown in the table. This is enthalpy change reaction. We have to find, this is also a calculation question. What is the energy change for the reaction? Well, for this question, we just have to okay, so first of all, let's look at the reaction is exothermic, right? The reaction is exothermic, so the delta H, or the answer you will get, is always going to be negative kilojoule per mole. So it cannot be the positive number, so we can automatically cross them out. Now we have to see the bond energies, or the energy change is asking. So remember, delta H, or the enthalpy change, it's basically bond breaking minus bond making. So bond breaking is actually, we are going to break these bonds on the left hand side, and we are going to make the bonds on the right hand side. But instead of doing this breaking every single thing, we just have to break one single thing. So here, when you look at the diagram, this part and this part is similar. The only thing that's not similar is the CH bond and the CCl bond, of course, and then there's the CCCl bond and HCl bond. So the only bonds that we have to break is the CH and the Cl bond. So let's look at the diagram, CH and ClCl. So we are going to add them together. The total energy that we need to break, it's going to be 650 kilojoules per mole. Now for the making one, we only have to see the structures, the bonds which are changed, which is the C and the Cl and HCl. So we have to look at the HCl and the C-Cl, which is 340 plus 430. This gives us 770. Now remember, bond breaking minus bond making, so 650 minus 770. Then this is going to give us my negative 120 kilojoules per mole, and therefore B is going to be the correct answer. Question number 12. Chlorine gas is bubbled into aqueous potassium iodide. What is the ionic reaction for equation for the reaction that takes place? Now this is a displacement reaction. Now, so this displacement meaning the chlorine is going to displace the iodine because the iodine is less reactive than the chlorine. And so we can say that the ionic equation is going to be chlorine plus iodide ion. So this is going to displace, so chlorine is going to take place inside the aqueous solution, so it's going to turn into an ion, while the iodide ion is going to force out of the solution by the chlorine, so it's going to turn into iodide, and therefore 12 is A. I'm sorry, because A is not correct because of Cl, it has to be Cl2, right? It's not balanced, so basically it's basically the same structure, but C is the balanced one, so we have to choose C. Question number 13. The concentrated aqueous sodium chloride is electrolyzed. Which equation represents the reaction at the cathode? The cathode basically means the negative electrode. So at the negative electrode, remember, an anode goes, the cation goes to cathode. Just remember, the cation will always go to the cathode, and anion will always go to an anode. So let's look at the negative ion, the positive ion here, which is sodium and hydrogen. Now remember, it says concentrated aqueous sodium hydrochloride, sodium chloride. So the molecule, the one that is going to be discharged is going to be the H+, because it is lower in the reactivity series. The easier it is to get discharged. Therefore, H is going to get discharged, and therefore 13 is C. 14. Which substance about hydrogen are correct? When hydrogen is burned, heat energy is released. That's correct. When hydrogen is used in a fuel cell, electrical generated energy is generated. This is correct. When hydrogen is used as fuel, water is the only product. This is also correct. So all three statements are correct. A is the correct answer. Question number 15. Solid X is heated strongly. The color of solid changes from blue to white. What is solid X? Remember, this is a water test. So the only thing that will change from blue to white is the copper sulfate. So when copper sulfate is with water, with the crystallization of water, it is blue. When it loses its water, it turns anhydrous meaning without water, so it turns white. Therefore, what is solid X? Well, the beginning of solid X is basically the hydrated copper sulfate, so C is the correct answer. Question number 16, iron 2 chloride solution reacts with chlorine gas. The equation is shown. Which statement about the reaction are correct? Okay, for this one, this is likely an oxidation reduction question. So, let's look at Fe2 plus ions are reduced to Fe3 plus ion. Well, this is not the case. It is not correct because it is not reduced, it is actually oxidized. So this is wrong. Chlorine acts as a reducing agent here. It is also wrong. Fe2 plus ion each loses an electron. The Fe2 plus will lose an electron, so it will become Fe3 plus. This is correct. Because as you can see, the other side is FeCl3. We can look at the charge. So it's basically the swapped under each other. So if Fe charge is 3, it's going to be under Cl, and if Cl charge is -1, it's going to be under Fe. So basically you just switch them across, like a cross pattern. And so we can know that the other side is actually a Fe3 plus ion. Okay, so Cl molecules are reduced to Cl minus ions. This is also correct, because you can see the chlorine molecules are being reduced into chloride ions, which is -1, and this is a decrease in oxidation state, and therefore D is the correct answer. Question number 17, which statements about acid and base are correct? Well, an acid reacts with metal to give off hydrogen. This is correct. It will react with a metal to give off hydrogen. The base will react with ammonium salt to give off ammonia. This is also correct. An acid reacts with carbonate to give off carbon dioxide. This is correct. Alkaline solutions are orange in methyl orange. This is wrong. Orange is the color of neutral color. And if it's yellow, the yellow color change in methyl orange is alkaline. And the red color is the acidic color for methyl orange indicator. So you have to know your colors. Question number 18, oxide number 1 is a solid, oxide number 2 is a gas. Okay, oxide number 1 is a solid that reacts with hydrochloric acid. And solid oxide 2 reacts with sodium hydroxide solution. Now this is the base. This is an acid, so they both react with the other. So this means this has to be the opposite of an acid, which is basic, and oxide 2 has to be acidic because it reacts with a base. And so oxide 1 is going to be calcium oxide. Oh, remember the metal oxides are basic. Metal oxides are basic. And non-metal oxides are acidic, which is NO2, and therefore B is the correct answer. Question 19. Which reaction is a photochemical reaction? Now, photochemical meaning you have to use photo meaning light. So, which chemical uses light in this reaction? Remember, substitution reactions in organic compounds and the substitution of alkanes, they will use photochemical reaction. They either use sunlight, or you can call they use UV, ultraviolet rays. Therefore D is the correct answer. Question 20, the equation shows represent a reaction at equilibrium. M and N represent the balancing number for the reactant and product respectively. A high temperature increases the concentration of Q. Okay. And a high pressure increases the concentration of Q. Which statement about the reaction is correct? Okay. For this question, we have to see. Okay, so M and N, we don't know the number, but it is the balancing numbers. But however, we do know that at high temperature, a high temperature increases the concentration of Q. This means the forward reaction is exothermic. Remember, a high temperature favors the exothermic reaction, and therefore the concentration of Q is going to be increased. Therefore, C is the correct answer. Okay, let's look at the second statement. A high pressure increases the concentration of Q. Remember, high pressure, if you increase the pressure, it's going to go from a number of moles from highest to lowest, from high to low number of molecule or moles. So in this case, if Q is increased due to high pressure, then the M is definitely greater than N. So C is the correct answer. Question 21, a period of the periodic table is shown. Okay. Which statement is correct? So we see group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4, group 5, group 6, group 7, group 8. Element R does not conduct electricity. This is false because these are metals, and metals, they do conduct electricity. Element R and Y reacts together to form an ionic compound. This is correct because element R is a group 1 element. It has a valency of +1, and this group 7 element Y has a valency of -1. So it has to gain 1 electron. So if they react together, they're going to form the compound RY. So an example of this could be sodium chloride, which is from group 1 and group 7. So they do form an ionic compound, so B is the correct answer. Question number 22, all metal nitrates are soluble in water. All metal, okay, soluble. So they have given you the solubility rules. These solubility rules you have to learn by heart. You cannot skip it. You have to know the solubility rules. Okay, so the question asks you which aqueous solution produce a precipitate when mixed together. Okay, precipitate. So we are just going to double displace them. So silver is going to form silver carbonate and sodium nitrate, silver chloride and sodium nitrate, barium chloride, and potassium nitrate. So let's look at number 1, sodium carbonate. Remember, all carbonates are insoluble, which means it does produce a precipitate. Then let's look at the second equation. The silver nitrate and sodium chloride, they're going to form silver chloride. Remember, all chlorides are soluble except silver, which means silver chloride is not a soluble compound, so it produces a precipitate. So 1 and 2 are correct. So the answer is A. Question number 23. Which rules describes properties of the transition element? Property 1, we know that transition elements have colored compounds. Property 2, they have high density. And property 3, they have variable oxidation states. So A is the correct answer. Question 24. The noble gases are in group 7 of the periodic table. Which statement explains why noble gases are unreactive? Well, this is because they have full electrons in the outer shell. Yeah, so basically they have full outer shells, meaning they are completely unreactive. You cannot add an electron or remove an electron. Therefore, they cannot form ions. Thus, they are unreactive. Question 25. Which statement is correct for all metals? For all metals, remember, all metals. So they conduct electricity when molten. No, all metal conduct electricity when they are solid. They gain electrons when they form ions. No, they lose electrons. They have high density. They have low melting point. No, they have very high melting point. So the correct answer is only A. Question number 26. Carbon dioxide is produced during the extraction of aluminum from bauxite. Which statement explains how carbon dioxide is made? Okay. Carbon dioxide is produced by the electrolysis. Okay? In electrolysis, because the oxygen is going to produce from the anode, this oxygen is going to react with the carbon electrode, which is graphite. And therefore they're going to form carbon dioxide. So oxygen made in the process reacts with the carbon electrode, therefore C is the correct answer. Question 27. Aluminum objects do not need protection from corrosion. Iron objects must be protected from corrosion. Why is this? Well, because aluminum resists corrosion. This is because it forms a protective oxide layer, which is the aluminum oxide layer. There's a very thin layer on top of aluminum. That's why it does not react, and therefore it can resist corrosion. 28. Which statement explains why zinc is used to protect iron from rusting? Well, this is because zinc is higher in the reactivity series than the iron. So it is more reactive than iron, and zinc can act as a sacrificial metal. Because it is more reactive, so zinc is going to be oxidized in preference to iron, and therefore 1 and 4, B is the correct answer. Question 29. Which conditions are used in the Haber process? Remember, in the Haber process, you have to learn this. Haber process is basically the process of making ammonia from nitrogen in the air and from hydrogen sources such as hydrocarbons. Now you have to remember the reaction conditions. The temperature used in the Haber process is 450, and the pressure or atmospheres is 200. Therefore, C is the correct answer. 30. Which process do not produce a greenhouse gas? Greenhouse gases examples are carbon dioxide, methane, and then fluorocarbons. So, digestion in cows produces methane, so the question says do not produce greenhouse gas. Combustion of wood. Remember, wood is an organic compound, so it will produce carbon dioxide. When zinc reacts with sulfuric acid, it's going to produce hydrogen gas and zinc sulfate. So D will not produce hydrogen gas. Is not a greenhouse gas, and therefore it will not produce, and therefore this is the correct answer. 31. Which reaction involving sulfur dioxide is correct? Okay. So it is produced during the extraction of zinc from zinc blende. This is correct because zinc blende is basically the mineral, the compound zinc sulfide, and when you roast it in air, you will form zinc oxide and sulfur dioxide. So A is the correct answer. 32. Lime or calcium oxide is used to treat wastewater from a factory. Which substance is removed by the lime? Remember, lime is calcium oxide, and calcium oxide is a metal oxide. Metal oxides are basic, so they have to remove acidic compounds. So ammonia is basic, sodium chloride is neutral, sodium hydroxide is also neutral. However, sulfuric acid is not neutral, and therefore D is the correct answer. 33. What is the structure of the ester formed from ethanoic acid and propanol? Remember, Ethanoic acid is going to form ethanoate ion, and propanol is going to form the propyl group. So it's going to be propyl ethanoate, and propyl is going to have the structure of C3H7. So that's going to be C3H7, C3, 7H, and the other one is going to be an ethanoate ion. This is an ethanoate ion, and therefore D is the correct answer. 34. Fuel X produces carbon dioxide and water when it is burned, and so does fuel Y. What could X and Y be? Now, they produce carbon dioxide and water. This is called a combustion reaction. This basically occurs for every organic material. So, X could be every organic material, right? Combustion occurs for every organic material. And remember, every organic material has a carbon atom in it. So the answer can only be D. It cannot be hydrogen. So it can only be B, D. 35. The structure of 4 organic molecules are shown. How many different homologous series are represented by these whole molecules? Remember, we can see an alkane here. We can see, what is this? This is the carboxylic acid. We can see an alcohol. We can see another alcohol. So basically there are one series, 2 series, 3 series, and therefore we have 3. Therefore C is the correct answer. 36. Which statement about ethene is correct? It has the chemical formula C2H6. No. Remember, general formula of ethene. Ethene is from the alkene family. They have the general formula CnH2n. So the correct formula of ethene should be C2H4. Okay, let's look at B. It burns in excess oxygen, producing carbon dioxide and water. This is correct because it is an organic molecule. It undergoes combustion to form carbon dioxide and water. 37. Ethanol is manufactured by fermentation of sugars or by the catalytic hydration of ethene. Which rows state an advantage of each method? For fermentation, remember fermentation uses a renewable resource. We have to look at the advantage. Hydration is basically a continuous process. So you can continuously produce these, alcohol or ethanol if you have to be specific. So D is the correct answer. 38. Which statement about an unsaturated hydrocarbon is correct? Unsaturated meaning they have C double bond. They have one or more CC double bonds. So they contain both single bonds and double bonds. Yes. But the important thing is they have to contain at least one or more double bonds. So 1 is correct. Statement 2, they turn aqueous bromine from colorless to brown. It's just wrong. The unsaturated hydrocarbons, when you add bromine in it, they would turn the bromine, which is brown, to colorless. So this is actually the wrong idea. Question number 3, they can be manufactured by cracking. This is correct. Alkenes can be manufactured by cracking. 39. Which polymers have the same linkage between monomer units? The same linkage between monomer units. Okay. Well, this could be a protein and polyamide because they both have the amide linkage. And it could also be carbohydrate and polyester, because they both contain the ester linkage. But carbohydrates can also be different linkage. They don't necessarily have the same linkage all the time. I'm sorry, esters and carbohydrates do not have the same linkage. Carbohydrates, they have the linkage of they have an ether linkage, while the polyester has a ester linkage. Sorry, I got confused there. And so the only answer here would be C. Question number 40. The diagram shows the partial structure of pterylene. Which pairs of compound is it made? Okay. So pterylene is an polyester, and polyester has a ester linkage, as you can see, COO. This is the ester linkage. So a polyester is made by two monomers. The first monomer is a dicarboxylic acid, which has the formula, which has COH group at the end, and it is made out of dicarboxylic acid and alcohol, dialcohol, basically a diol, DIOL, diol. It has a alcohol functional group at each end. So if you remove the OH from the acid and the H ion, you will be left with water molecule. And therefore A is the correct answer. So I hope you understand everything in this video. If I went a little bit too fast, please do tell, leave your question and doubts in the comments below. Anyways, thank you as always for watching these videos, and I wish you good luck for the October-November series taker. Until we meet next time, bye.